Hey everybody, welcome to another live installment of Catch Up with Mayo. I try to do this once a week where I come here and hang out with some of you in the comments. You can ask questions. They don't have to be just related to stuff on my channel, but they're all welcome. And yeah, I usually come here Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern. Today I had to come here a little earlier, so we're starting at 3:30 Eastern today. And I see we already have a bunch of people that have been are waiting right on time. So that's good. I don't know how many people have been waiting, lurking, or what. But yeah, I'm not going to be able to be here that long, meaning, well, an hour, 10 minutes, something like that today. Um, Henry's the first. Hello, Henry. And yeah, I'm just going to see what I can do because I got to leave pretty quickly. Can't do an hour and a half today. So, yep. And what do I have to tell you? Well, you've been seeing stuff that's new in my videos, because I always think about what news can I talk about or what has been going on with me. But it's only been a week, and you can probably check it out anyway when you watch my channel. You see in my regular videos what's going on. All right. Hello, Lila. Lila's always good with the different questions. What's the longest stream I've done? I know I've gone at least 8 hours because it was a full work day. You know, 8 hour day. It might have been 9 hours. I don't know if I ever went 10. I don't know, but I know it's at least 8 hours, and I don't have that. I didn't save it, but yeah, But anybody who can tell you, especially when you have guests on here. When you have guests on here and we're joking around and talking stuff, the time can go very quickly, for sure. And you don't even realize the time. The 8 hour one was good, Peter Boothworth says. Oh, you remember that, eh? Hello, Marcus. Marcus Thompson. And I really should make a list of things like to talk about during the dead times because I'm trying to get to do like Doc Docus does. I'm trying to find stuff I can use, like like this, for example.
Who put this on? It's just a random selection of notes in no particular order. For fuck's sake.
I got to get little clips and things to put on at times. That's the only one that I have there. So, in the meantime, just hanging out. Hi, James. You see, I've heard they're going to remix the Red and the Blue albums from the Beatles. Thanks. Have a great day. Yes, they are. At first I was not crazy about the idea. I mean, I said, why do I need, yet another version of the Red and the Blue albums? And then I started thinking to myself, there are a lot of songs on those albums that have not yet been remixed. We've heard a lot of the other songs already that Giles Martin did and kind of, modernized them a little bit. If you want to call it that. It's maybe a harsh word, modernizing. But there are songs on there we have not heard yet. You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, we haven't heard yet. We haven't heard the song Girl off Rubber Soul. And I don't think we've heard. I don't think we've heard Old Brown Shoe. Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't want to copy stuff from other people. Yeah, that's a Doc Docus clip, Henry. I don't want to copy. Yeah, my latest record store video. Yeah. Hello, Penny Lane. You're in my ears and in my eyes. What's going on? It's going all right. It's always good when I do these. Okay, Save Me Some Time is the follow up to Westworld called Future World. Any good? Is it worth a watch? It is, in my opinion, worth one watch. It is a very weak sequel. I don't know if you like Westworld, if you've seen Westworld. Westworld to me is great. Future World is quite a disappointment, but it's not unwatchable. It's watchable. I will say that it has the absolute most pathetic excuse for a return cameo appearance in almost any movie I can think of, and that one is Yul Brenner, who returns as the robot gunslinger, and it has to be seen to be believed in Future World what they conjure up in order to have him appear in the movie again. It is pathetic. Laura, what's going on? Hey, Joe, were you a Sinead O'Connor fan? Absolutely not. Having said that, I did like the song "Nothing Compares to You." You know, I did like that song quite a bit, and she had one other song that I liked, and I don't know the name of it, but it was a kind of an up-tempo song, a little more rough song from her, and I can't remember what that was, but I remember hearing that and I liked it. I wish I knew the name of it. And I heard her do a version of Mind Games the other day, which I liked. She did a cover of John Lennon's Mind Games. But favorite TV show? There's so many of them. Where do I begin? I don't know. You know, the ones I always come up with are stuff like sitcoms. You know, The Honeymooners, I Love Lucy, All in the Family, The Odd Couple, stuff like that. Hello, Steve Maynor. It's funny, you know, I didn't hear anybody stirring about up there. Now I hear people stirring about. Cheers. Have you ever been able to explain or understand what prompted Ringo's descent into alcoholism and drug addiction back in the mid to late 80s? Ringo has been an alcoholic, he said himself, since childhood, since the teenage years. He said he was an alcoholic his whole life when he got off it. He said he couldn't even remember playing sometimes with the Beatles. This is Ringo's own words that he said before. So he didn't just get descend into alcoholism and after the breakup and in the 80s. I don't know all about the drugs, other than alcohol. That's all I know. But the only thing that matters to me now, and the only thing that should matter to anybody, is that Ringo has been amazingly sober and healthy looking. Now he's, 83 years old, looks fantastic. He's been sober since 1988. What is that? 35 years? 80, 90, oh, 18, 19, 35 years sober. It's amazing. He looks better now and in the last 30 years than he did when he was like 35, 40. So there you go. But yeah, Ringo says that he was an alcoholic for a while, and the famous scene in A Hard Day's Night where he's walking with the boy along the water. Um, he actually came back from a nightclub and he was pretty hungover. You can see it in the scene when he's talking to the young boy. He is kind of hungover in that scene. But I mean, that doesn't mean anything. People in their early 20s drink anyway, and maybe go out. Beatles at that time in their popularity probably were used to going out and having a good time at the club anyway, even if you're not an alcoholic. So, you know. No, I'm not a fan of Sergeant Bilko. I just never it never did it for me. That's one of the old shows that just never grabbed me. I've seen it a little bit, but that just never appealed to me, you know. So I just never got into that. I've been sitting here for about an hour and I haven't heard anything upstairs, and I just think that maybe because I haven't made a sound either. Now that I'm talking, and now that I can probably be heard upstairs. It's probably why he's stirring about. But you can't hear that. And I always tell people who don't, in case you don't know, the reason I'm wearing these headphones, I don't have to hear anything with this. There's nobody talking to me, but I like to use this mic. And the reason I like to use this mic is because it drowns out sounds around me. If I didn't wear this mic, there's a better chance, I think, that you'd hear stuff going on. Do I believe Ringo would have had any kind of recording career, let alone one that's lasted 53 years, if he hadn't been a former fab? Probably not, but it doesn't matter to me either. That's, I mean, no, I don't think he would have. No, but at the time, Ringo was considered the best drummer in Liverpool, and He was John Lennon said he was a professional, Ringo, and they knew of him, and that the Beatles compared to Ringo were amateurs. But as far as him having a solo career, no. But I mean, you know, how? I mean, why? What does it matter? I mean, think about other bands. How many bands do you know where the guy who's just on the drums and doesn't really, it's just did Charlie Watts have from the Rolling Stones have a fantastically long solo career? No. That kind of thing. I'm not saying you're looking to I don't know, challenge Ringo or something, but Paul was not a big drug taker. No, he was not a big drug taker. And he said that himself. He would never use. He was, I never used to take drugs that much. He said back then when everybody else was, and I wouldn't have either. It's just the way that I am. And I remember him saying he was afraid of taking LSD, and I don't blame him. He said that's all I need to not be able to get back again. You take a trip and then never come back to who he is. Stuff like that. But of course, we know he loves that marijuana, doesn't he, Paul? I do like John Bonham's drumming from Led Zeppelin very much, but John Bonham's drumming is obviously much more heavy than Ringo's, and it's a totally different thing. I don't know how many people think of him as the greatest drummer of all time. I mean, some people think Keith Moon was the greatest rock drummer. Some people might think Gene Krupa. I mean, what's the greatest drummer? How do you even how do you even figure that? It's funny because Rod, sometimes I don't think of Ringo as a confident person. He's gotten more confident, but there were periods of time where I actually thought he was not very confident about his abilities. And still, like when he doesn't want to play on certain albums and things, I don't think he really. I mean, he knows his limits. He knows his limits. There's another drummer for Beetle Barb. He mentions. Yep. Well, let's give Paul let's give Paul credit where it's due. I mean, Paul just simply was not a big drug user. He just wasn't. If you want to say, yeah, he dabbled in cocaine, he dabbled in it. Paul was never a big drug user, though. Let's be fair. Do I think the Titanic will now be left in peace after the sad accident with that submersible? I don't understand people's fanaticism over the Titanic, but then again, there are people who don't understand fanaticism over the Beatles and collecting all these records and things. So what can I say? It's not for me to say. Some people, that's their life. Oh, let's explore the Titanic. Let's go down there to the bottom of the ocean and look in there. I say, who gives a rat's butt? That's just how I feel about it. But oh, top five. I get this question all the time. I don't know what to say. I could just name a bunch of bands: Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I like the Steve Miller Band. I mean, you know, the Monkees. Hello, Tanner Johnson. Have I ever read the book that the Planet of the Apes movie was based off? It might be an interesting read. Yes, I did, and I didn't like it so much. I grew up with the movie, so when I got to the book, it was a little bit different. It was a lot different, I should say. And was it Pierre Boulle, his book, I think it's Planet de Singes or something. I think it's actually translates into Monkey Planet. Monkey Planet, you know. Hi, Wes. As soon as if I ever get around to watching Secret of the Incas, which I got in Blu-ray not too long ago, I will definitely do that for my movie channel. My movie channel, if you want to subscribe, is called Mayo's Movie Marquee. And yes, I am thinking of another name soon. So have a laugh at that. I don't care. But the thing is, yeah, because I'm trying to think of something that fits the channel. I'm thinking I don't start giving me a ton of names because I'm not. It's going to waste time and space here. But I just think I want something that's more in tune of old stuff, yesterday, nostalgia. Because I do have new movies on there, but My whole thing is that I like older stuff. And whenever you look at a movie channel, I see a lot of movie channels out there. They're obsessed with movies of right now, today. Stream it now. What's streaming on Peacock? What's streaming on Tubi or whatever the hell they do? That's what they're interested in. They're not interested in movies from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. And I love how they say, "Oh, I've seen Jaws. Oh, I've seen The Exorcist. Oh, I've seen The Wizard of Oz. I know that movie. I've seen Citizen Kane." A few like important movies they've seen. I've looked at Casablanca, but they're not really into the older movies, and that's kind of what I specialize in. So even though I do watch new stuff. Hi, Rob. Doing well. Do I think Paul is wearing more facial hair these days to hide his wrinkly neck and face, or got lazy? Well, Paul's always been obsessed with looking clean shaven for the most part, with a rare exception here and there. But I think it's probably more to hide his neck and face, yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't criticize him for that. I've always have this discussion. I do things. I mean, I believe you try to look what you consider is your best. And I think Ringo does the same thing to look young. I think Ringo dyes his hair. Second thing he does, he wears dark shades, so you can't really see his eye imperfections and wrinkles and things. And Ringo's got a very wrinkled, hanging neck, so he wears a big, long beard to hide it, and it works for him. If it works for you, do it. I have no problem with that. Well, I don't agree with this. I know for me, you might say, spoken like a guy who's never tried marijuana. Yeah, I don't believe it. I believe it's a gateway drug or can be a gateway drug, and I believe people are not their best when they're out there driving around and they're in a little bit of a pot-induced haze. I don't think that's a good idea. But is it as bad as heroin? Is it as bad as alcohol? No. But it's the silliest thing in the world to me when people say alcohol's worse. What the hell has that got to do with anything? I always wonder when people say, not you, Henry. I'm talking about anybody. People say that all the time. Okay, yeah, I agree. Alcohol's worse. So, you know what I mean? I mean, gee, somebody loses one arm. Oh, it's not too bad. It's worse to lose both your legs and both your arms. I mean, that's an extreme analogy, but I mean, yeah, of course there's worse, but that doesn't make it okay. I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. Scarred God, thank you. I'm glad you get a kick out of Anthony and me. But there you go. You can wait and wait and wait. I have no interest in seeing Barbie. Oh, you say kidding for sure. Yeah, I'm not going to see those movies. I'm just not interested. Um, yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, I hear you. If you're into old movies, have you seen the screwball comedies of 30s, 40s from Preston Sturges and Ernst Lubitsch? No, I have not. I haven't seen everything, but I could talk about some Charlie Chaplins. I could talk about some Laurel and Hardy, Marx Brothers, and stuff like that. Yeah, I think you're right about that, Mark. It's the thing that cracks me up. You mentioned John's ego. I just heard somebody else or read somebody in the comments on social media the other day again saying John had a massive ego. No, he did not. John didn't think he was a great guitar player. John sang "I'm a loser." John sang, "I feel so insecure and help." He felt insecure. He always needed somebody. He needed Yoko like a mother figure. I mean, with this where people think that John was this egotistical guy. I never get that. By the way, I'm not talking about you, of course, Marcus, but you used the word ego, and that reminded me of this. Um, you know. Well, I know you'll have to write to your local congressman on that one. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, I agree with you on that. You know, let's see. Yeah, people say things like this all the time. I would love Don to join in on a live stream. We could ask him stuff. I bet it would be fun. There were a couple of times at the store where I was recording a live stream from the store, and Don was standing there, and people asked him a few questions. But Don doesn't have the attention span. That's one thing I got to say about him. It's very hard to get him to focus. But Don is not like your typical homeless guy. He's very intelligent, very bright. He's very well read. He knows a lot of stuff. He follows the news. I mean, he really is good like that. However, um, the only thing that he does is like I'll say Don, 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 Don. To get him to like pay attention, and not just me, but Joe from the record store, Bazooka Joe. Everybody, he's usually like he can't focus very long. Well, this I agree with you, and again, I was going to say this, Henry, but you saved me the trouble. And I didn't want to say this because people are going to think I'm bashing Paul McCartney, but Paul obviously has the biggest ego in the Beatles, obviously. Let's see. Yeah, I'm waiting, Wes. I'm waiting for that guy. I made the rant video. He's referring to the rant video about a guy asking me to pick him up a Coke Zero. That guy hasn't come back into the store, that old guy. And when he does, I'm going to record him. If he wants to be recorded, I'm going to ask him, "Would you mind being in the video?" And if he is, I'll talk to him about that. So you see, I don't think again. You have to get the more popular than Jesus quote right. It's a shame. One of the things you got to learn as a Beatle fan is John wasn't bragging. He didn't go around saying the Beatles are bigger than Jesus. Ha ha ha. He didn't do that. He was doing an interview with Maureen Cleave, and it came out in the U.S. in a magazine called Datebook. But he was just talking about the Catholic Church and saying how the Catholic Church is shrinking, and he was saying, people don't go to church, and Jesus isn't really that popular with kids anymore. In fact, the Beatles are more popular than Jesus. And he wasn't bragging about it. He wasn't bragging about it. And he said in the interview he could have used anything today. He could have said, well, today motor cars are more, people like motor cars or television more than Jesus. But the only reason that he said Beatles was because that's what he was most familiar with, being one. But it wasn't bragging. And that's the whole point of that thing. Okay, it's a comedy seeing Bazooka Joe making a deal with that monotone dude in my. If he's referring to my video series on my channel called Record Store Reality, check it out. Always trying to sell oldie records. Yeah, that's fun. Yes, I did see the new Dracula trailer. It's the name of a ship called the Demeter. I don't know how to pronounce it. The Demeter, the Demeter. It's the ship in the novel Dracula. Dracula sails by ship from Transylvania, his home country, which has no blood left. He's drained it dry. So he goes to London in search of new victims, and he does that by taking a ship. And nobody really ever talked about the ship voyage. It's glossed over. If you see most versions of the Dracula story on film, yeah, they show you that he took a boat, but that's it. This movie has a very interesting take. It takes place all on the ship, and it shows you what mayhem and carnage and horror might have ensued on the ship when Dracula kills the crew on the ship. You usually don't see it in the movies. So that's an interesting angle, but of course they're making Dracula out to be this huge monster bat, this big like gigantic thing, instead of just a man who sucks blood. So, but there you go. I don't know. I don't know if I'd say George had that much of an ego. Maybe not because he had. I mean, his feelings got hurt. His ego might have got hurt. But I never thought of George as having a huge ego. But you guys could discuss if you think otherwise. Mr. Blood Vessels here. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, that's what it is. A lot of well, that's it. I got to deal with that every day. John is very much misunderstood. John is very much demonized these days. He's marginalized, demonized, and put down way too much today. And people that's the narrative they've got of him. Unfortunately, that's a new narrative. It sticks, and a lot of people who don't know everything right away they just gravitate towards those buzzwords about him. They just concentrate on all his negative qualities, none of his positive qualities. Okay, and in that same Maureen Cleave sessions, nobody pays any attention to the fact that Paul essentially called the United States a trash country. Obviously, John's statement took headline, though. Yeah, back in 1966, back when people still cared about religion, back when people still cared about God, and I think it's a disgusting thing. What John said was right. Look where we are now. Okay, look where we are now, 50 years after that. Okay, we've sunk down to the point where people are trying to to like ban. Or, I'm not going to get into all the specifics. It's a touchy subject. Ban certain religions, and they're trying to make all people of a certain religion, you know, right here, evil. That wasn't. I like how back in the '60s people still defended the religion, and back then they said, "Don't you talk dirty about about God or Jesus or religion. Don't say all that stuff." Now these days it's the other way around. Don't you dare mention Jesus. Don't you dare mention religion. Cuckoo, cuckoo. Completely upside down. Everything is. There you go. There's your little risque speech, little grandstand moment. If the Beatles had remained together and were still having fun making music and still all close, and one of them passed, would they have split or replaced the member? We don't know unless it happened, right? But I personally believe the Beatles felt that the Beatles were those four men, that the Beatles wouldn't go on without the four. Those four guys were the Beatles. They're very tight and close, and I believe they would not have gone on without any of the one of the four. Now, of course, when George Harrison, walked out, Lennon's like, "Oh, let's get Eric Clapton then. We'll get Eric Clapton." And all these. Look, I like John, but he could be a jerk. you know, I'm not saying he's perfect. People think I think he's perfect. Are you kidding? It's hard to find a more imperfect human being sometimes, and that's what I like about him is that he's not this perfect god. This rock star. He's rock star. He's a human, flawed. So, yeah, that's my answer on that one. I always say that I just think that Live Aid would have been the one opportunity where I thought maybe the Beatles would have reunited, if at all. If they were going to do it, and if John was alive, they might have said, "Let's just play a little set for that." So, Tim Allen, hello. Tim Allen says the biggest thing about George was his green thumb, not his ego. Yeah, that 1970s Rolling Stone interview is a shame because John really, sarcastic and angry in that interview, but I don't blame him. He was pissed off. He felt he was him and Yoko were getting dissed, and he felt that they were not treated well, and that some of his best friends, which he might call his beast friends, didn't really do well by her, and he wanted to break some of the myths. John went too far in the 1970 interview, but there's many other interviews, not just the 1970 interview, but people only want to hear what they want to hear. They only want to know what they want to know. If John is a bad guy, they're going to stick to 1970 interview. They're not going to go for any of the other nicer interviews. Well, that's what's beautiful about the guy in the video. The guy in the video who doesn't pick up on Bazooka Joe's sarcasm makes it a gem. It goes right over his head. That's why it's funny, So, okay, Tanner, what would you say your favorite Lon Chaney Sr. film is? I've always thought he was one of the best actors from that era. Just a shame that so many of his films are lost. Well, I'm gonna go first with the Phantom of the Opera. Okay, the Phantom of the Opera. But I also like a movie called that you might not have heard of called I think it's Ace of Hearts. It's one that was on a Lon Chaney collection that's easily available on DVD. It's a compilation. Ace of Hearts was very entertaining. I remember liking that a lot for a silent film. I also like a movie called The Unknown with the Lon Chaney. I also like he did a silent version and a sound version, one of each of The Unholy Three, the only sound film he ever made just before he died. The Unholy Three silent and The Unholy Three sound. Both of them pretty good. And I like a movie he did called The Penalty. There's a little, tiny review on my movie channel about The Penalty. Okay, Rod asks, are you getting any closer with a new place to live? Okay, the situation is, and I'm hoping it comes to pass. I've talked to this story before about how, my girlfriend and I are looking to have a situation where there's another couple that we've known for many, or she's known them for 30 years. She's best friends with the woman, and we're waiting for her to retire from her job, which might not be for another year or so. And when she does, she's going to sell her property. She owns a big house where we are kind of around where we are. She's going to sell her property and then buy a couple of smaller properties. I don't want to go into too many details because it is personal. But basically, let's just put it this way: she's going to be able to buy two houses. She's going to buy one for them, for her and her boyfriend. They've been also together. Her boyfriend and her have been together like 40 years, and they're not married. But anyway, I know there's somebody out there that would go through the roof here and that. But anyway, be that as it may, so they are going to be getting their house, and they're going to also get a house for us, and they're going to rent it to us for peanuts. It's going to be cheap. It's going to be much cheaper than we're paying here for a tiny little apartment. I mean, we have two bedrooms here, but we need like four, three or four. Anyway, am I getting any closer to that? Um, it's hard to know exactly when it's going to happen because what has to happen is they have to both retire. Well, the woman especially, she has to retire from a job, but she's thinking she may retire sometime next year in 2024, maybe the springtime, spring or summer next year, a year from now. Then she's got to find the place she wants to move into, and then she has to also put her current house up on the market, which could take a long time. So it's hard to pinpoint when this is going to happen. All I know is this summer, sometime next month, a girlfriend and her friend are going to be taking a ride to look around at a few possible, just to get a feel of where we want to move and stuff. And you know, we don't know where it's going to be yet. Could be Delaware. We don't really know. But I can't give an exact. I'm telling myself right now, I have to be resigned to the fact that I may not get out of here until 2026. I don't know. It could be 2025, 20. I'm thinking 26 at the earliest, which is, as when you get older, every year is more time out of you than it was. It's a difference between waiting 3 or 4 years when you're 20 and when you're getting older. It's anyway. So there you go. Very good point there, Chris. Jesus Christ Superstar proves what you said, Joe. Back in the late 60s and early 70s, Christianity held much more power to people. Yeah, absolutely. Do I like the Moody Blues? Some songs. Um, oh, okay. Tim likes the Unholy Three. Tim, do you like the sound or the silent version or both? Do you think the Lennon box sets are going to use a lot of those lost Lennon tapes tracks that haven't been released as proper songs? Sally and Billy, She's a Friend of Dorothy, Mira Mira. When you say, I don't know, maybe I know you're talking about the rest of the Lennon estate boxes, the deluxe sets they've been putting out. Yeah, I don't know where they are. Come on, Lennon estate, let's go. We need more. Joe would live in the record store if he could. Shame there isn't a flat above it. You got that so wrong, Lila, but I appreciate the joke. There's no way. I mean, I like to get out of there. I don't spend as much time there as I used to. I like to check in there because you never know what kind of good things you're going to find. But I used to stay there a lot longer than I used to when I would go. You know. Was that record store you always go in business during? Was it in business during the '70s and the '80s when you were growing up? No. If no, I think that store came in the I think in the 1990s. Well, I didn't discover that store until the 2000s anyway. I don't, but I know it wasn't there then. Alex, hello, Alex. They should release Now and Then with Carnival of Light. Well, if they do it, if they do Carnival of Light as well, I'll listen and judge it then. But judging by anybody who's ever heard it, and a few people have heard it, experts, they say, I think Mark Lewison, the author, is one of them, and they pretty much say it's not really anything to get that excited about, and I take their word for it. It's interesting, I suppose, but you must like '80s films, Joe. Ghostbusters, Trading Places, Stir Crazy National Lampoon. Yeah, yeah, those are all pretty good. I've seen them all. The first Ghostbusters I saw in the movie theater. I like '80s films. My taste, my taste of films really goes from the 1930s through the 1980s. I mean, I like some films in the 90s as well. Some films I even like in the 21st century, but they're few and far between. Uh, why are the words so small? The highlighted sentences used to be larger. Oh, maybe because I changed. Let me try something. Let me try something here. I don't know how to get back to that now. Haha. Hey, how about that? How's that? All right. Yeah, I changed it. I changed it. Woodland wants to be a big star. There you, there you go, Woodland. I got you on there. All right. All right. Tim's only seen the silent version. The sound version is good too. They're both good. They're a little different, but the reason it's good is you get a chance to hear Lon Chaney's voice the only time, and it's exactly what you would think it. Kind of rough that you would think it sounded. Just the way he looks, his voice sounds like you'd think it would sound. I have a bad feeling that when finished, the new Beatles tune will sound like "Free as a Bird." I don't think so because I think with the technology they're using, Peter Jackson's technology that he used in the Get Back film, I think they may be able to improve on it. Dry throat, uh, and hopefully with that technology they can go back and fix up "Free as a Bird" and Real Love a little better. Well, like I say, I'm not a fan of Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys, but I realize it's a status. I accept the fact that I'm in the minority, and it's considered a great album, even though it's not my favorite thing. Yes, good point. I'm reading Cynthia Lennon's book called John. She says that John was a very sensitive, insecure person. The only time he would become aggressive and cocky is when alcohol was involved. That's generally true. I mean, even John's most staunch supporters, like Elliot Mintz, for example. Elliot Mintz is always supporting John, and that's fine. And these days, Elliot Mintz is supposed to be coming out with a book. And I'm looking forward to it because I never thought I'd say this years ago after John was killed, but that we need to get John a little bit more respected, because there's too much garbage about him. But anyway, and even he said, though, although he's always supporting him, Elliot Mintz did say the worst thing I could say about John Lennon is that he was a lousy drunk, and everybody knows that about him. I'm sorry, don't know that album. Hello to Stockholm. I'm not familiar with that album. I think that John truly loved Cynthia. Yes, I think he did truly love Cynthia in the early days when he was more naive. And I think as he got older and he just realized he matured beyond Cynthia, and he didn't want somebody that just wanted to basically cook dinner and get his pipe and slippers, so to speak, and just clean the house. He wanted somebody that was a little bit more stimulating, and that's why he went for Yoko. That's what I think. Do I have any original one sheet movie posters? Yes, I do. I have quite a few actually. They're in the other room in the closet. When I get this new place one day, I'm hoping it's big enough that I can have a dedicated movie room and I can frame a lot of those one sheet posters and hang them up in a movie room. The only thing I keep saying is, the older I get, not for nothing. People always hate when I talk like that. Oh, we talks about getting old. Where you going, Joe? You're not going anywhere. No, hopefully not. But I got more years behind me than in front of me. That's just the law of physics. And I want to be able to have enough years and a lot of good time to enjoy it. So hopefully we get in there pretty quick. Relatively quick. I'm only highlighting this because somebody else doesn't care for it. I know it's Tim Allen's favorite album, I believe, of all time, and Tim, I respect that for you. I just you know how I feel. I think that's true. I think that's true. I don't think Brian Wilson was ever able to compete with the Beatles. I don't think that Brian Wilson was the genius that everybody thinks he was. I mean, he had talent, no doubt about it, and he definitely had vision. But I just don't think so. I don't think he was that great. Hmm. Yeah, you can fall asleep listening to Elliot Mintz's voice. I know what you mean. Oh, you got to be able to take it. That's not that big a deal, really. Does it hurt that much? Come on, Tim. All right. Well, hope you'll come back later. Hope you won't hold this against me too much. And when people say, you know what I always say when people say putting down things they don't know anything about, I kind of resent that because I don't think you have to know. Like you don't like Pet Sounds because you don't know anything. You you know what I mean? Like if we're talking about Pet Sounds, I don't know. It's my ears. If my ears don't like what they hear, I don't care how much people tell me what's involved or how much to know or the history. It's not appealing. Same thing goes with movies or anything. If it doesn't appeal to me, it's not a matter of knowing. Although anyway, Tim, I tried to give Pet Sounds credit in general. I said I realize I'm in the minority. It's considered a great album. You love it. I hope you understand. Yeah, a lot of people who met John was always surprised by how shy and sensitive John came off to them. That's true. And John was basically, from many accounts, a pretty good guy with the autographs when it came to that. He even signed for that jackass that killed him the day that he got killed. But not always. There were plenty. I know people personally, a couple of people that said John told him no, no autographs. But basically, there's many photos that are making the rounds on social media, real photos, not fake, where you see people in the '70s getting a lot of autographs from John at the Hit Factory and at Dakota and everything. I listened to it about 3 times, and so what? I don't. I don't know if I listen to it in mono or stereo. I think it stinks. You know that. I'll take Wouldn't It Be Nice? I'll take God Only Knows. I'll take Sloop John B. And the rest of it you can have. That's my opinion, you know. Well, I thank you. I thank you, Scarred. It's Scarred God, right? Not scared. Is it scared or scarred? Scarred. Say number one for scarred. Is it the first one or the second one? Scared. Because you spell it like scarred, I think. There you go. Lila gave Pet Sounds at least 20 to 30 listens over different days, different moods. Wondered why I'm not getting it, so you can't say I didn't invest in it. To be compared to Peppa, ha. Well, there you go. And yes, John Lennon really did love New York. Scarred, right? Scarred. Exactly, Beetle Babe. I know that, Beetle Babe. Say, Beetle Babe. Well, I don't understand if you don't want to come up. I was going to say sometimes for something different, you can come up on a Q&A if you want, but I understand if you don't feel like it. David says 8 Days a Week was a mega hit in the U.S. and easily the best song on Beatles for Sale. It would have been a showstopper at Shea Stadium, but John never liked it and refused to sing it live or at the BBC. Well, I don't know. I didn't know that he outright refused to sing it live or at the BBC. I didn't know that, but I do know that he was never fond of the song. But then again, that's John. John wasn't fond of a lot of great Beatles songs. Said it was a piece of nothing, and it just had no meaning, and blah, blah, blah. And I know he wasn't big on 8 Days a Week. I agree. I think it's a great pop song. I really do. And what else can I say about it? But can I explain? That's about all I can explain. And as far as John not liking a lot of the stuff that he did and the Beatles did and everything, that's the sign of a great artist. I'm sorry to tell you, but a pained artist, a real artist, never is 100% satisfied with his work. He's always looking to improve it, always frustratingly trying to better it. I remember Charlton Heston, my favorite actor, Charlton Heston. He made tons of movies, and he's some classic movies. And he was asked when he was old, what's your favorite movie? And he said, I always say the next one. And he said, because I never feel I get it right 100%. And that's how a lot of great artists are, So, do I think Bazooka Joe will die early because of all that junk food he eats? No comment. I mean, I hope not. Yes, John did hate Run for Your Life. Yes, he did. He didn't like Run for Your Life. And but there's a lot of songs. Okay, let's see. Affordable Wax, hello, says, God bless you for never going to particular pressing plants, as in, oh, and it's a Monarch pressing, or it's one pressed in Scranton. In my opinion, who gives a blip? Can I tell you something? I'm with you. And, people are always reading the dead wax, and they're always like saying, oh, this one. I mean, once in a blue moon, or depending on what the release is, I might check a book or something. Like I just got a version of A Hard Day's Night, the UK original Hard Day's Night in stereo. And when I got it, excuse me, the record store owner said, "Oh, it's look at the dead wax." The dead wax says, "Come on, I, I, I may actually don't hold this against me, but when I do show that album in one of my videos, when I finally get around to showing it, because I got it recently, I may actually check a book to see what the dead wax is, because you know, in some cases I will, but as you know, I don't usually go crazy with that. I think it's ridiculous when you start checking labels and numbers and code numbers, and this one has, I don't know, if it says 48X on it, it's this. If it says 48Y, it's like, I don't get too much into that, you know. There were some songs where I disagree with John. John thought Birthday was rubbish. Well, he thinks everything is rubbish pretty much. Yeah. Are you doing a hangout stream later or just this one? Just this one. Unless things change that I don't know about. But it's okay. Forget it. I understand. Um there you go. You heard it here first. Bazooka Joe will live forever. I think Don is gonna live forever. Little Don. I think he's the one. Did you say you didn't like the 2019 50th anniversary remix of Abbey Road? The only thing I remember, two things I remember about it. Number one, I liked the old Darling mix, and let's not get into anything here with the doo-wop thing. We did this with Revolution number one. I do like the doo-wop feeling on "Oh Darling," the harmonies on there, and I really like the way it felt. But basically, remember, they're not saying "shooby doo wah" on it. They're not saying "shooby doo wop" or "shooby doo wah." They're, they're just singing harmonies. So I liked what happened with "Oh Darling," and I didn't like "Come Together." There was some stuff done to "Come Together" where the ending was different, and you heard more like no, vocals or squeals or something. I remember "Come Together" sounded a little different. I didn't like it. Am I on Matthew Street close? I would say as close as two you two buddies can be. We talk to each other. Aside from making videos, once in a while, we haven't gotten together in a long time. But he used to visit the area once, sometimes, and we get together. If he does, I'd love to get together with him again and have lunch again. We did that before, and he's a good guy, and I consider him a friend. So yeah. Back to Oh, he's talking to Woodland Goblin. Okay, gotcha. Sorry. Did you enjoy the Mike McGear album that Paul and Wings played on and produced called McGear? You enjoy the song "Leave It." Thank you, Jim, about for the channel compliment. I will definitely say that it's funny. I heard it the first time. Here's an album I didn't really care for the first time, and then I played it in a different mood the second time, and I liked it. I liked it the second time. Some things get better the second time. Some things don't get better. Some things get worse the more you play it. Some things you don't like so much the first time, you don't even bother, playing it. Okay, why is Tom Hunyadi so cool? I don't know, because he knows me. No, I don't know. I don't know. You'll have to ask him. Why, Tom? Why are you so cool? Maybe he's got an answer for you. If I could come back as any actor in any time period, who would I be? I have to think about this one. Who's the most sexiest male actor that scored with all the women? I really don't know who that would be. There's a lot of I'd have to really think about that. I'd have to think about who's considered the best looking actor and who got all the women. I'm probably thinking around the 70s or something like that. I don't know. But that's the actor. A lot of people often say this. John probably would have died early because of his smoking. You really don't know. You really don't know. Uh, some people live to 90 smoking too, so who knows? Woodland says if there's a chat tonight, he'll come up. I'll have to. I don't think there's going to be one, but you never know. You'll see the notifications if there is one. Keep that in mind because we'll see how it goes. All right. Speaking of John, I think one of his most underrated albums. Number one is Mind Games. The great songs on that album are overlooked. I agree. Mind Games, though, from people I talk to in the Beatles circle, uh, you know, these days, people are having better feelings about the Mind Games album. Let's put it that way. You missed the live Fab Gab album song rankings. Yeah, I gotta get that Fab Gab going again. I gotta do that in the song rankings in particular. Yep, I agree. I've been thinking about that. Okay. What do you think is the secret for the Rolling Stones being together for so long that the Beatles lacked? The Beatles, when you say they lacked it, the Beatles are all the better for it. I think the Rolling Stones should have split up a long time ago, probably in the '80s, maybe 1990 at the latest. That's just my feeling. Um, I just think the Rolling Stones, well, Mick and Keith in particular, I think now it's to the point where they just want to at this point, 2023, I think they just want to be able at this point to say we were the longest lasting band, rock band of all time. Although I don't know if the Beach Boys kind of like get that crown. I don't know. I don't know. I I don't know. But I don't think when you say the Beatles lacked, it's kind of like as if to say they didn't have something special that the Stones had. The Stones just don't know when to quit. Um, I gotta say, I saw a clip of Mick Jagger recently, and Mick just turned, was it 80? Mick Jagger just turned 80, and I gotta say, he still performs well. I'll give him that. Mick still performs well, but it's basically Mick is the whole show. Mick and Keith now, and that's it. Really. I don't know. I'm not. I love the Stones. I do actually. I do. I like the Stones. Love the Stones. But um, it's not that the Beatles lacked anything. What the Stones lack, let's put it this way: the Stones lack something the Beatles had, and the Stones lack to know when enough is long enough, and when the albums are becoming really mediocre. That's one of the things the Stones lack. Skipping a lot of comments. Just uh, I'm sorry, folks. I'm just looking for. Oh man. Okay. Marcus says, I love Andy Nichols, but are you like me and kind of find a little undercutting that he puts rock and roll as his favorite Lennon album? My honest feeling, and by the way, I'm going to do a promotion now. By the way, tomorrow, right around this time, we're going to be live over there at the Two Legs channel. We're going to be doing that show called Stuck Inside These Four Walls, where I go on with Andy Nichols, Tom Hunyadi, and Beatley Tone of Beatley Tone's Beatles channel, and get your questions ready and ask us live. These are questions that are not trivia questions. You're not looking to stump us. We're not looking for you to try to get us on a tough question, but opinions. Ask us opinion questions and we'll answer them, go around. And that's tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time over at Two Legs. So there's my plug. Anyway, to answer this question, uh, yeah, Andy Nichols has said that the rock and roll album is his favorite John Lennon album. And when somebody has a favorite album, what can you say? That's their favorite. It's not right or wrong. Do I think it's undercutting a little bit? Yes, I do. I do, but that's his opinion. He likes it because he says in his words, he says that was what John Lennon was. John Lennon was rock and roll. The rock and roll album was John, and I always joke with him, and I'm not, I'm serious. I do it lightly. I say, yeah, rock and roll is John, but don't you think Plastic Ono Band is John, and Imagine is John? Like when songs like "Steel and Glass" and "Nobody Loves You When You're Down," and that's John. Let me get rid of this. You can't see it. That's John in here. Yes, John was a rock and roller too, but John was John. All his feelings and his thoughts. So yeah, I think it's odd that somebody would like a covers album the best out of John Lennon. Yeah, but I'm not denying him that. I don't get it. Oh brother, we got this again here. Oh, my girlfriend and I love watching Mayo go live on an 85-inch 4K. I'll say hello to the girlfriend for me. Yeah, I know. Hey, look, what can I tell you? I love women. What can I tell you? But I'm being on an 85-inch TV. That's spooky. Spooky, spooky. Was Lennon and Starr asked to be in movies at their height because of who they were, not because they could act? I definitely think so. Well, then again, Richard Lester, who directed Help and A Hard Day's Night, was the one who asked John if he'd like to be in How I Won the War. So I got to think that maybe he wouldn't have asked John if he didn't think he'd be good in the part, you know? And Ringo was in The Magic Christian, when he was in the Beatles. But Ringo had gotten good notices for his comedy in the Beatles movies. Uh, do I think that Mick Jagger is actually a good dancer? I don't know if I'd call it good dancing. I don't think he's a great dancer, but I think he knows how to entertain. You know what I mean? I wouldn't call him a great dancer, but I'd say that he knows how to be a front man up front and excite the audience. That's not really good dancing, but okay. Do you agree with me that George Harrison was only interested in talking about the Beatles when it was in his financial interest after they broke up? Um, I would say yes. Later in the years, say in the 90s, really, like the anthology, the only reason is reported strongly that the only reason George agreed to the anthology was he needed the cash, he needed money. But yeah, I think one of the things I've come to make George Harrison my least favorite Beatle over the decades has been seeing so many interviews with him and dissing the Beatles and how I mean, John did that too. John. Look, I don't want to make it like I'm being a hypocrite. John dissed the Beatles, but at heart, John loved the Beatles. You could see him wearing pins that say "I still love the Beatles." He said, I'm a Beatles fan too." He collected Beatles bootlegs. He was proud of the work that they did too. He defended them against the Rolling Stones. Yeah, George Harrison really was over it. Goodbye. You know, and I don't think I like that about George. Ever read the Bible, Joe? It's funny. When I was a kid, I read it a lot because I don't know. I went to Catholic school, and they taught us religion and stuff, and I was interested in the Bible stories when I was a kid. Like I like to read a lot of the Bible stories and things. I don't read it anymore. My feeling is that I'm definitely am. Uh, I don't like saying a believer because to me, believing is like you believe in something that's not real. I, I, I feel that God exists and Jesus exists, and I feel that not because I believe it, like I believe in a ghosts or tooth fairy or something like that. No, because to me it's real. They're real. And I believe that God is right there. I don't believe you have to read the Bible. And to this day, I'm not 100%. I am not 100% sure that the Bible is all properly interpreted. I don't necessarily know if I think that the Bible was written uh, for God's instruction for the men to write. I don't know what the 100% sure what the Bible is. You know what I mean? So I believe and I feel and I trust and all that and in my life, but I don't go around reading a lot of the stuff because I just am not sure of it all. So, hello to Mr. Beatles Pro. Tom, I hope you hear me there. Okay, I'm reading a lot of comments, but nothing really. Oh, I'm glad to hear that, Liam. I'm glad to hear that. Would I say the Stones are washed up? I don't want to diss the Stones too much because I say I do like the Rolling Stones. I enjoy them. I haven't heard that album. That the album they had. What was it called? The blue, kind of blue. The rhythm, the bluesy one, supposed to be very good. I haven't heard it, but I just think that once they started getting into like the '80s, after Tattoo You, I liked Emotional Rescue. I liked Tattoo You. I liked Undercover of the Night. And then after that, I started thinking, enough of the Stones. And I think they went past their expiration date. I don't know about washed up. What insect scares you? Um, I don't like insects. Who does? I mean, but the worst kind are, I think, I don't know if they're called thousand leggers or centipedes. Those things that have like 1,000 legs around them and they kind of like crawl like that. Those are if you see that, I hope I don't see one. If you see that on a wall or something or on the floor, it creeps me out. I don't like those things. But I don't like anything. The other night I was watching my TV in the dark, and because the screen was bright, there was a fly that got in the house, and a little fly, and it was on there. And I don't like a fly buzzing around. I don't like any insects. Put it that way. Okay, it's getting closer where I got to think about ending this because I gotta leave pretty soon, folks. So I'm gonna be ending this very quickly. I'm sorry I can't. I'm having a good time here. We have over 90 people here at one point, so I appreciate that, and thanks for all the nice things some people here have said. Some people have said a lot of nice things, and I appreciate that. You know who you are. So, isn't Paul huge on the Beatles' legacy, just like John? He loves propping up the Beatles as the greatest. Well, I like that about Paul. He's proud of the Beatles. I love when he goes around and says stuff like, "It was the Bloody Beatles' White Album." Shut up. I love that. I love when he or like one time he said about Oasis, he says, "Oh, they're slightly derivative," sarcastically and stuff like that. I like when he says things like that. Like somebody said once, I think Howard Stern, or it might have been Howard Stern. Somebody said, "Would you call Helter Skelter the first heavy metal song?" Somebody said that's the first heavy metal song, and McCartney, whether he was doing it tongue in cheek or not, said, "Oh, I'd go along with that." So definitely, I do like that about Paul. He should be very proud of the Beatles, and he is. Mr. Beatles Pro, Chicago Fest in 2 weeks. Please, Tom, please think about going to the February New York Fest. I know it's a lot, and if it if it doesn't snow, we'll be all right. Because I really want to meet you. I gotta get ready soon to leave. Yeah, I do think that George was way too much of a curmudgeon as he got older, especially towards the Beatles. Uh, Hello, Tom. Thank you for showing up. Good to see you. Have a good weekend as well. Yeah, I got to get off soon, very soon. And I think I'm caught up now. So I'm going to say, okay, that's it. Folks, this was a lot of fun. I always enjoy this. I'll do it next Saturday. Just be alert for the time of the day of. You look for the time listed the day of because it's usually 4 p.m. Eastern, but it could be 3:30, 4:30. It could be something like that, but usually around 4. So thank you everybody for being here. Thanks for all the nice comments that people are making. I love doing this because I like to have the opportunity to talk to people who watch. And too many times I'm on channels where people they don't ever respond to comments at all in the writing. They don't ever give like even like hearts. They don't even put like a heart next to any of the comments. And then sometimes some of them don't even go live on a regular basis. I like sharing things with you, where I'm at, seeing where you're at. So cheers, everybody. See you next week, if not sooner. Sometimes, as you know, sometimes I do impromptu chats out of nowhere. So I might pop up. And don't forget, tomorrow, one more plug. Tomorrow, 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, over at the Two Legs channel. We're doing Stuck Inside These Four Walls, and we ask you all to come in the comments just like this and have some questions, opinion questions. You're going to ask four of us an opinion on certain thing. It could be anything Beatles or solo, and we'll go around and hopefully pick your question. All right, Penny Lane. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much, Chris Gavito. Thank you. Keep watching. Thanks, folks.